Hi again. One of the powers that began to develop while I was being groomed to be a new age occultist is that I acquired the power to heal. I discovered it by accident. Can't recall exactly when or even how. I just discovered this power. I could put my hands, particularly my left hand, on the ailing part of a person's body. And I would actually feel pain going into my hand, moving up my arm. And as I'm kind of sucking it out of the sick person, it would go into my hand. And somehow I knew that if I washed my hands, the washing was symbolic of whatever it was from the sick individual that I sucked into me was removed or washed out of me. It was psychological too. If I put my hands on somebody and say they were experiencing some form of rage, I would feel that rage on the inside of me, knowing it was not my rage, but theirs. It was like I was some kind of an energy suction cup. And so this power began to develop during the time that I was communicating with the spirit guides. I remember my grandmother. She was dying of womb cancer. She was over 80, and she lived in New York City, and I was in Hempstead at the time. And so she wasn't that far away from me. When I'd walk into that house on a Thursday night, it was like just my very presence in that house brought normality to her life. She was sick, she was weak. When I came in, she was herself. We would have a session, and I would lay my hands on her lower abdomen and suck out that negative energy. And she would look at me and she would say, "Is this the same heathen girl that would not go to church?" And she would laugh and she would say, "Are you a witch?" And I didn't know it at the time, but yeah, she called that out. She called it out right. I was not healing by the power of the Lord. I didn't even believe in the Lord at that time. It was some other power. Now, when I became born again and I went to a church, I noticed that the church that I went to, they believed in the occult on the down low, so to speak, because all the people in there were running to various Obia ladies and stuff on a regular basis, casting spells and all that kind of thing. But the organization, the system of the church, did not believe in healing. They were not into what is known as the gifts of the Holy Ghost. They just weren't there with that. So, when I felt this call to ministry, I didn't feel a call to preach. I thought that my thing was healing. And I thought that all I had to do was just stand up in front of a congregation, and put my hands out there and just send out the healing power, and I wouldn't have to say a thing. But I found out that they didn't want that. They did not want that in that denominational African American church. So if I was going to be in ministry, I had to do what they did, and that was preach. I didn't know a thing about preaching. Never studied it. Didn't even know what a sermon was. But as I slept in the middle of the night, I found myself preaching. And I would walk through my house mumbling, and all these different sermons would be coming out of me. And I thought, oh, this is God. This is the Holy Ghost. I learned many years later that that kind of preaching is not the Holy Ghost. It's the spirit of the Antichrist. That's right. The Antichrist uses human vessels to preach. I'll get on that in another video.